We are less than 24 hours away from a historic winter storm impacting the United States, which will bring record-breaking snowfall to some areas in the deep south. But another thing that's going to be happening as well is some of the coldest weather that we've seen in a long time for much of the country, with dozens of record-breaking temperatures coming to areas like the Ohio Valley, the deep south, and all the way along the East Coast. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about this winter storm, the changes that have occurred over the last few days, and also how cold it is about to get. And we will begin with what's happening across the country right now, and for the most part we are quiet, but this is the calm before the storm. We do have a little bit of light snow that's falling back over in Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Texas Panhandle. This is again light snow. It's not going to accumulate into much, but this is important because late tonight we are going to be seeing this area of moisture collide with another area of moisture that's going to be coming out of the Gulf, and then eventually this is going to translate into a big winter storm as we go into Tuesday and as well as Wednesday. And this is going to be a historic, very rare winter storm. And when I say those words, I mean it. I'm not trying to, scare you by any means, because this is something that does not happen very often. This is the first time in like 11 years that we've seen a winter storm watch even issued in northern Florida. And guess what? There's going to be ice and snow accumulation in northern Florida tomorrow. So this is definitely going to be something that we need to be paying attention to very closely. In addition to that, we have Arctic air that is continuing to spill out of Canada, and the coldest of that air will be coming to many of us tonight and as well as tomorrow, which will lead to some record-breaking temperatures. And we will be talking more about this big winter storm in just a moment, but I do want to touch on how cold it is about to get, as we have a huge Arctic plume of air that is moving right now across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. The coldest of that by tomorrow morning will be located in Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri, and then eventually by Wednesday this will continue to move towards the East Coast, where frigid weather is expected. And this is one of the ingredients that's going to set up this rare Gulf Coast winter storm, as we have cold air that is way below average that's reaching all the way down towards the Gulf Coast. By the way, this time of the year is usually the coldest time on average across the entire country, usually mid to late January, so just keep that in mind. And then eventually by the tail end of this week, one more shot of cold air will move in before eventually things get a little bit more normal, I think, as we go into the last week of January. So how cold is it actually going to get? Well, these are the temperatures waking up tomorrow morning. This does not include the wind chill factor. Many areas in the Midwest will be as low as 25 degrees below zero. Frostbite, definitely a strong possibility tomorrow morning. Bundle up. It is going to be very cold out there. Below freezing temperatures reaching all the way down into Florida and right along the Gulf Coast, which will set up the threat for heavy snowfall that will accumulate very quickly. And then back over in the Ohio Valley and Northeast, many of these areas will actually have record-breaking low temperatures. And then by Wednesday morning, that cold air moves more to the Northeast. Look at Pennsylvania, possibly 15 degrees below zero for an actual temperature in the Pittsburgh area. Here are the wind chills. Again, many areas in northern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin as low as 50 degrees below zero for wind chills, which is just downright dangerous. And then back into the Northeast as we go into Wednesday morning, many areas as low as 25 degrees below zero, even down into the single digits back over along the Gulf Coast as we go into Wednesday morning. And this is a map that shows you where those record-breaking low temperatures will take place. This is tomorrow morning. Areas like Kansas as low as 10 degrees below zero, even 6 degrees over in southeastern Tennessee. And then going into Wednesday morning, this will likely be the coldest morning of the entire week. Many areas setting daily records for record-breaking low temperatures, anywhere from Ohio back along the Gulf Coast. Even some areas like Houston will be as low as 15 degrees. And low maximum temperatures, basically meaning that this is the lowest high temperature that we've ever seen on this given day going into Wednesday. A lot of areas up and down the East Coast and into the Southeast will be dealing with record-breaking temperatures. And you know what else is going to be record-breaking? The winter storm that we are going to be seeing tomorrow and Wednesday along the Gulf Coast. We have lots of winter storm warnings now in effect, anywhere from South Texas all the way into Florida, into Georgia and South Carolina. This is still very hard to believe. This is going to possibly be a once-in-a-lifetime type winter storm along the Gulf Coast, especially back over in Texas, Louisiana, and southern Mississippi, where there is a potential for upwards of 8 to 10 inches of snow in a few locations. So this is again going to be a historic winter storm. And so if you are in any of these winter storm warnings, make sure you are taking preparations now. Even if you're in one of the purple boxes, which is a winter weather advisory, the potential for ice and significant snowfall exists as we go into late tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And before we go further into today's forecast, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It is free to do, and it'll keep you posted with the latest on our latest weather forecast. And there is a chance that we go live tomorrow for this winter storm, so subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified with the latest weather updates. So this winter storm is really going to start to ramp up as we go into tonight. This is right around 10 o'clock. Notice how how there will be freezing rain and snow beginning around central and east Texas. This won't yet affect Houston. It won't really get going there until overnight tonight. Notice after midnight tonight, the freezing rain and snow really starts to ramp up with heavy snowfall back over in East Texas and central and southern Louisiana. Freezing rain and sleet falling across much of southern Texas and then back through Houston, which will lead to ice accumulation. By sunrise tomorrow, the snow will really start to pick up in intensity as moisture increases. We are expecting historic heavy snowfall across the Gulf Coast around Houston and then back into areas like Lafayette and also over towards New Orleans is where that snow will really start to pick up by sunrise. Notice how the snow really intensifies just after about 9 to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is going to be very heavy snow. It's going to be very wet snow, and the temperatures are going to be right around 27 to 30 degrees, which is prime for significant snowfall accumulation, even along the Gulf Coast. And then eventually by around lunchtime, that snow will start to move out of Texas. So again, if you're in Texas, the majority of this threat will be Tuesday morning, but keep in mind, a lot of that ice and snow will not melt more than likely at least until Wednesday, if not even possibly Thursday with how cold it is there. Eventually going later into Tuesday afternoon, that heavy snow moves through Louisiana. It'll be done in New Orleans right around 6 o'clock or so tomorrow night, back into Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. And this is a bit more of a question mark right now, but we do think there will be some snow that falls in both Georgia and as well as back through South Carolina as we go into late Tuesday afternoon and evening. And then eventually into the later half of Tuesday evening, there will be some freezing rain that falls back over near Jacksonville. So if you have to commute anytime after 7 to 8 o'clock, it might be best to stay off the roadways because it's going to be a bit more dangerous out there, I think, just after 8 o'clock around Jacksonville and just north of there as well. And then snow will continue across much of the Florida Panhandle, including Tallahassee, and then back into the Carolinas. And then eventually after midnight, a lot of the freezing rain, sleet, and snow will be confined mostly to the coastal regions in North and South Carolina, a little bit there still in Georgia and a little bit in northern Florida, before eventually, as we go into Wednesday morning, look at how far south that freezing rain starts to drape. It actually goes down I-95, eventually going towards areas like St. Augustine, for example, and near Gainesville, which is hence why we do have winter storm watches right now for like Gainesville, Florida, for example. Wouldn't rule out a couple closer to the coastline, but eventually after sunrise Wednesday, it's almost all rain across central and southern Florida. So in general, the freezing rain should stay far enough to the north of St. Augustine, but don't be surprised if there is a last second change to the forecast. But most areas in central and southern Florida will remain above freezing throughout most of Wednesday. Before I show you the expected snowfall accumulation across the Gulf Coast, this is the probability of seeing greater than 1 inch of snow. Again, very high probabilities, anywhere in the dark red. Chances are much lower, again, across most of Florida. If you're anywhere around Jacksonville, it should be predominantly just freezing rain, sleet, and normal rain. I don't really foresee there being much snow that mixes in there, as the temperatures aloft will be a little bit above freezing while the surface is at freezing. And then back along the Gulf Coast, if you're expecting more than 3 inches of snow, the best chance of that will be in southern Louisiana and southeast Texas, where historic snowfall is expected. More of a 50-50 chance right along the Carolina coastline. Same thing for southern Georgia. The chances right now are right around 40 to 50%. And then for the chance of seeing greater than 6 inches of snowfall, I do think we will at least have a couple of places that have this happen, but it will be mostly in southern Louisiana and southeast Texas. Chances right now are right around 20 to 30, maybe 40%. Honestly, though, I do think we're at least going to have a couple spots well over 6 inches of snow. Wouldn't even rule out a spot near 10 inches of snowfall out of this winter storm. So here's a reasonable forecast in terms of how much snow you can expect out of this winter storm. And notice much of southern Louisiana and southeast Texas expecting at least 3 to 6 inches of snow. But again, this is a slightly more conservative approach. I'm basically just showing you what you can at least expect. I do think there will be many areas in southern Louisiana that are higher, maybe as high as, again, 8 to 10 inches of snow. I'll show you a graphic in a second that represents that a bit more. And then back along the East Coast and through southern Georgia, southern Alabama, and northern Florida, I do foresee at least a widespread coating to 2 inches of snow. I think right along the East Coast of South and North Carolina and then back into southern Georgia, we'll have a couple of spots near 3 to 4 inches of snow. It wouldn't be, again, a surprise if a couple of areas overperform. Again, this has been a very tricky forecast this entire time, so there's definitely a chance that some things do change. It is a very compact winter storm, and this is not an area that we typically see winter storms in. So historical data with computer models is much more limited here, which makes this forecast even more tricky than, a northern winter storm, for example, in the Midwest. And then back over here in southern Louisiana, this is a higher end scenario. Notice that the HRRR model is showing the potential for many areas over 5 to even upwards of 9 inches of snow. This is very possible, so don't rule this out if you're back over in southern Louisiana. And by the way, I just want to throw this out there. New Orleans has never seen more than 3 inches of snowfall on record, and the last time they had measurable snowfall was back in 2008. and 9. So again, this is going to break records almost undoubtedly. We do at least forecast 3 to 5 inches of snow in New Orleans. There will be some surrounding areas over that. So again, this is going to be a historic snowstorm that we are, again, expecting here across the Gulf Coast of the United States. Again, I'm not trying to hype this up by any means. It's literally just the reality. This is a very rare historic winter storm that is about to take place. In terms of ice accumulation, the majority of any freezing rain and sleet will be confined here to Texas, even parts of southern Louisiana, perhaps a glazing of ice, which even a glaze of ice will cause problems on the roadways, especially since there's no equipment to treat this sort of stuff here in the Gulf Coast. And then back over into northern Florida, we are also expecting anywhere from a tenth of an inch of ice all the way back down to a hundredth of an inch of ice. So that's the range that we're currently expecting. Perhaps even a little bit of ice accumulation back up into the Carolinas as well, despite it not showing on the map. I think it's possible that there could at least be a glazing of ice, especially if any of the snow that falls ends up melting. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the button down below and subscribe if you've not already.